Dominus dixit an me, Filius meus est tu, ego die genuite, quare fremuerunt gentes, et populi meditate sunt in ania. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Dominus dixit an me, Filius meus est tu, ego die genuite. A little bit as in the early church, but nevertheless it's more intimate for that very reason, hidden in accordance just with the angels amongst us, those same angels which sang what we've just heard now on that first Christmas night. But did you notice one thing which sometimes escapes our notice? They were enshrouded in light. We think of light usually in the context of the other great feast at which we have midnight celebrations, Easter. But they're already there here. They come also, these beings of light, here and there at other points. And light again is seen at the watershed of the Gospel, which is the halfway house, so to speak, the Taboric light, what happens on Mount Tabor, when the Lord gives some idea of who he is and what's going to happen. And at that point, he allows at least those three to intuit that it's not just a man. They are in front of majesty and creative power. And he gives them an appointment to go back to that place when he is risen from the dead. Here we have this same phenomenon of light. We also have the phenomenon of music. It has been picked up, actually, on tape, the singing of angels. It came to be quite by chance in the context of my link with Italy. In fact, we were talking about the case recently when talking to exorcists. His cause for beatification is coming up, Padre Matteo Lagrua. He was in Sicily, the official exorcist there, and he had great gifts, a truly holy man. But one day he was celebrating for a big group there, and you can actually hear it on tape. You can hear the words of consecration, and as it comes to the consecration of the chalice, it's getting louder, and it's quite distinctive, and it's really the singing of angels. And the tape was handed over to the University of Palermo nearby to be analysed, and the scientists who looked at it and compared it with any known instrument or noise, and their written reply was, this sound cannot be produced by any known instrument. So we have it, and it's there actually on YouTube, and it is something out of this world. It gives us some idea of what the praise of God is in the angelic realm. And those who have had some kind of acquaintance with heaven, people who have died and have had some intuition, have immediately heard something of the beauty of the singing. Therefore, we need to reproduce something of that otherness and that care when it comes to approaching that same majesty. Now, I return to this question of what surrounds the majesty and what therefore was seen even by these simple people, shepherds. These simple people are much loved by the Lord. Already in the Old Testament, the Anawim, the poor of the Lord, were his favourites, as it were. And Our Lady, although not a poor person as such, was poor at heart, and with St. Joseph, she opted for the offering of the poor people, 2 turtle doves. However, this is something that we need to bear in mind. Those who were the great of the time missed the train, and they're still waiting. The poor people got it. Even today, actually, I was quite surprised how the simple and those who sometimes are relegated to second class are actually way ahead of us in many things. I was at Johnstown at 10 o'clock and the church was full, and you could hear a pin drop. They were all travellers, extremely reverent, all ages, a large number of children, and I thought, this is actually edifying. They know more in their simplicity sometimes than the great of this world. And I compared that with what is going on now, this very moment perhaps, in many of the parishes of Ireland, where respectable people are crashing up to the altar without even a thought of confession. And in fact, spending a long time today in the confession box, I noticed how each year there are fewer and fewer. But I return to this light. Earlier, Bosco appeared, and I'll tell you something I was quite unaware of. He had picked up what I had mentioned last Easter with regard to the miracle of the light, that same light of which we are speaking. He had mentioned it to a common friend of ours, Joe. I don't know the details. He'll tell you probably in person afterwards. But Joe took it very seriously and was determined to get the light. It can be God. In fact, it is the one time in the year when the holy light in special protective containers is allowed to go in certain designated airlines to the main points of especially the Eastern Church. And therefore it carries on, right, permeated through the Eastern world especially, burning until the following Easter. The light lit on Holy Saturday by the finger of Almighty God in the hands of the Patriarch. So Bosco brought it here, and I lit it just by the crib I had just blessed after putting the baby Jesus there at the opening, and here it is, this same light coming from not Bethlehem but Jerusalem, where it is the end of the story, the victory, but the same light, presumably, as the angels saw, or rather the separate shore surrounding the angels, and which is always present in any ecstasy. You look at a person in ecstasy, there's a certain beaming, and also it is present in the charismatic experience. People will tell you, those who have gifts, when they pray with people, if they see darkness, it's a sign of sin, murkiness. If they see, when they're praying with people, light, it's a sign of grace, and it's okay. So, light is also something which we carry. And you can see it in a person's face. A person who is graced is a person who beams. A person who is in a state of grave sin is not at peace, and he can only fabricate a smile. And that's the kind of smile that you'll see around in the pubs of Ireland over this period. The frothy smile, the appearance of a smile, the forced smile, the loud laugh without depth. Whereas a person who is in a state of grace and peace and union of will with the Creator, no matter what the pain, immediately will handle it with an unperturbed and profound, even joy, because he's wedded to the will that wants him well and rules the world and over which we have no power. I conclude. What did the angels sing? glory. But then immediately this peace was shed upon us. And to whom? People of goodwill. The will. If our will is not handed over, and if our will is contaminated, e.g. by unhandled bitterness, things that we allow to linger for years and years, then there can be no joy. To some extent, we can limit the damage of our state by choosing not to contaminate our interior world and not to allow what need not be there enter there. The dynamics of other people that we don't have to share the life of, e.g. choosing not to go precisely to the pub culture or even the television culture. We can free ourselves from what is actually going to damage and make heavy our soul. Time spent with Jesus in a place like this, in a time like this, will leave a trace of peace. The equivalent time spent with bad company, even pumped at us, will not have the same effect. So let's think about this as we start eventually a new year. It's worth it, choosing what has the right to be in my heart. I alone have the key, but joy is made of peace and not of